Hey everyone, here I am again, taking a break from answering comments to make a video to answer more comments. A lot of people ask me about my origin, like where exactly I come from, or how did I get from Russia to Canada, especially now. I understand where most of these questions come from. I'm fully aware that I have quite an unusual accent for a Russian person, but just to answer a few of these questions right away, I've never visited England or any other part of the United Kingdom in my life. My parents don't speak English at all. I've never had a teacher who had a British accent. Right, so how did this happen then? Great question. My journey so far was pretty chaotic, so grab yourself a cup of tea, or whatever the hell this is that I have, and let's begin. So, let's start with my name. My Russian name is Nikita. Some of you might have thought it's Nikolai, because in English, Nick is short from Nikolai. But in Russian, Kolya is short from Nikolai. And Nick is short from Nikita, which is my name. I was born in 1996 in Crimea, in a little town called Eupatoria. Now, if you follow politics, you might have heard the name Crimea in the last few years.
As Russia takes control of Crimea, symbols of the past are erased as Russian flags are raised.
Don't worry, we'll get there later. By nationality, I'm a mix of different stuff, as many people are. I'm part Polish, part Ukrainian, part Jewish, part Russian, part Belarus, you get it. But the majority of people in Crimea, including my family, speak Russian as their first language. There are many reasons for that, we won't go into it. So when people in the comments suggested that I'm bilingual, they were not all that wrong. I am bilingual, it's just English has nothing to do with it. I could speak Russian and Ukrainian since I was a child. Wait a minute, you said you're Russian, now you're saying you're Ukrainian? Yes, and let me explain to you why it could be a problem sometimes. You see, in Russian, we have this word. If you translate it into English, it means, well, Russian. We also have this word. And if you translate it into English, it means, you probably guessed it, also Russian. But they're not the same. This word means literally a citizen of Russia, someone who comes from Russia. And this word means someone who's somehow related to Russian culture or Russian language or like Russian ethnicity, something like that. So it's just like a custom or a force of habit at this point to refer to yourself, I'm Russian, if you speak Russian. Many people do it. By nationality though, and by birth, I'm Ukrainian. I spent most of my childhood singing Ukrainian folk songs and looking like this. But I'm also Russian. And you can see how this can be a problem these days. So just a little disclosure at the end. When I'm saying I'm Russian, even though I'm from Crimea, I just want you to know I'm not making any political statements. I'm not calling Crimea Russian. I'm not supporting the war or anything. This is just a force of habit. This is what we do in Crimea. I know that most of you won't have any problem with that. I've read the comments, they're very sweet. But sadly, not everyone has this mentality, and there are always people out there who are just looking for a fight. So I felt like I need to clear this out. Back to the original story. Back in the day when I was a kid, I used to speak Russian with family and friends, and Ukrainian everywhere else. TV, movies, school education, everything was in Ukrainian. Was that an issue for people like us? No. We live in Ukraine, and Ukrainian is the official language, so we should speak Ukrainian. That makes sense. If you live in Canada, you speak English or French. If you live in Spain, you speak Spanish. Logical. I remember my parents told me once that it could have been a little bit inconvenient at times, especially when it comes to like court sessions and government applications, you know, anything where complex vocabulary is involved. But hey, Russian was never banned. You could speak Russian to anybody if they could understand you. And very often, if you need to like fill in the application, there are options of Ukrainian and Russian. No big deal. My school, though, wasn't like the usual school. It specialized in foreign languages. I knew it. You studied English since you were a child. That's why German. I studied German in school. We had English, but way later, in like 1 hour a week. But nevertheless, I liked English. It sounded cool to me as a teenager. My granddad was also a big old school rock fan. He liked Led Zeppelin, Queen, the Rolling Stones, Deep Purple. So I grew up listening to that kind of music. And I also have picked up a few bands myself later on, like Nirvana, Foo Fighters, and Green Day, Blink-182. How did I listen to Blink-182 and never picked up the accent? And me being me, I always tried to kind of mimic the way they sound. Of course, it didn't make much sense at first. It was just this sound that was fascinating me. In Ukraine and in Russia, we used to call English yogurt language. Because if you don't know English, it sounds like that. So for everyone in my family, it became obvious pretty quickly that I am into two things: music and languages. I mean, my English wasn't great back then, of course, but I developed a habit of sort of mimicking how English would sound if I knew it. But if you repeat something many, many times and actually listen to how you sound and pay attention to how close it actually is to, like, real English, this is what you get. When the school was over, I was going to either study music or languages in university. And after consideration, it was decided that languages sounds more like something I can pay the bills with. So I went to the northern part of Ukraine to study linguistics. I was going to major in Germanic languages, German and English, and I'm saying I was going to because, well,
Today, pro-Russian forces stormed Ukrainian Navy headquarters.
it was my freshman year. I'm going to be honest with you, there were rumors that this is going to happen. People were talking about it. But I was 17 at the time, and I had the same thought that most people had. What? Russia is going to take Crimea? Are you outside of your mind? And I swear to God, I have this vivid memory. March 19th, 2014. I get a call from my mom, and she says, "Hey son, so, we are going to be in Russia now." "Oh, okay. Are you, like, moving or something?" "You could say that." So, on March 18th, Crimeans have voted. Russia then took Crimea. Ukrainians are furious. I'm here with them, and I'm just thinking, what do I do? In my head, it was like this. Borders are closing, and I can either stay in Ukraine and finish my education, but I might not be able to go home and see my family for an indefinite amount of time, or I can go home now and quit my university and figure everything else out later. I chose option number 2. Was it a right thing to do? A question that I ask myself on a regular basis, and the answer is always the same. I don't know, and I never will. So when I got back home, I eventually got my Russian citizenship and my Russian passport. At first, Crimeans had an option not to do it, but you get it. To normally operate your life, you need your basic documents to, like, open a bank account or go to work. It didn't feel, like, threatening. There are no military in the streets around. It was just strange. New currency, new documents, new everything. But hey, Russian is an official language now. Yay! It's an experience most people think they'll never have. And I was one of those people. Now I have an idea of how and why that happened, but not back then. By the way, if you're curious, you can leave a comment and I'll make a separate video about that. But yeah, I spent a couple of years just adjusting. I couldn't continue my studies at the university, so I became an electrician. I don't know if you have this in Canada or US, let me know in the comments, but in Russia, we have this sort of thing called technikum. It's kind of like a college, but for technical professions. If you want to become like an electrician or a plumber, you go there. I also played in a band at the time, but the idea of getting a degree never really left my mind. And when I was 24, I decided to give it another go. I became a freshman again, this time in Russia, and it was great. It was also 2019. At that time, I thought, am I, like, cursed for real? Every time I'm trying to get a degree, something horrible happens. Yeah, reminds me of home. And this thought became even louder in 2022.
It has happened. This is Ukraine's capital. What seemed unthinkable in the 21st century is now underway.
I wake up one February morning because my phone is exploding from all the phone calls and text messages from all my friends in Ukraine asking, "We are getting bombed, what is going on?" And I don't know. And I get this stupid thought that maybe this time I get to finish my education. But then, sometime later, I see a report on the news where a government official is saying that there's not going to be a draft and they're not going to touch students. And by that point, I already knew that if they're saying that they're not going to do something, they're definitely going to do it. Listening to that was like, you need to leave now. You should have done it years ago, but this is like the last warning. So I started my preparations. At first, I wanted to go to Europe, because it's closer and it's easier to go there. So I got ready. I took only necessary stuff so it doesn't look like I'm leaving for good. But there was another problem. When you're leaving Russia, especially if you're a man, especially if you're a Ukrainian man, you will be prosecuted by KGB on the border. And then there are two ways to get yourself out of there as quickly as possible. Number one, just act oblivious of anything that is happening in the country right now. You don't know nothing. The war. I don't follow politics. Is there a war going on somewhere? I'm just going to visit my friends in Europe. I'm sorry. Again, I don't follow. What is Ukraine? And there's an option number two. I love Putin. The best. Go Russia. I eventually picked option number one and practiced it for a couple of months before I left. Anyways, I went there. KGB officers either believed my story or didn't care at all. And I was relieved. I thought the worst part is behind me. A mistake. I went to the European side of the border, of the country that will remain nameless. And this is what happened. Hi, I want to leave Russia. Please? Ukrainian? Yes. Yes. Great. Ukrainians can come. You're free to go. Great. Thanks. I'm gonna go now. Oh, wait. Sorry. No, you cannot go. What? Why? Well, you're also Russian. Russians cannot go. But I'm also Ukrainian. Ukrainians can go, right? Yes. But you're also Russian. And Russians cannot go. Oh. Okay. So, when can I go? Oh, no, you can never go. Oh, okay. So, should I, like, come back to Russia now? Yeah. Bye. They wouldn't let me in because I'm Russian. And the fact that I'm also Ukrainian didn't make any difference. And the funny part is, you can't just go back to Russia. There's a line of people. So I stayed in that purgatory, in that land between countries, for 6 days. And there's nothing there, no stores or anything. It's just a field where you just exist. In Russia in the middle of December. And I had some food on me, but not a lot, since I never thought this can actually happen. So at day 3 probably, I started asking for food just from random strangers. Unique experience. But the funniest thing happened when I finally got to the Russian part of the border, only to realize that I must be prosecuted by KGB again. And the KGB guys were laughing at me because of what happened. At that point, I was just like, yeah, silly me, just let me go, please. Finally, I got out. Some kind people drove me back to Moscow. I have no idea what to do, I'm crushed. And then, a couple days later, miraculously, I get a message from, like, a friend of a friend that says, hey, a mutual friend told me you want to leave the country. Do you want to go to Canada? Because one of my friends went, he says people are very nice and they don't really care where you come from at all. Do you want to go? Yeah. It was a lot more expensive and required a lot more preparation to go to Canada, but I was like, I'm locked in, I'm going. So first, I needed to go back to Crimea to grab some stuff and say goodbye to my family. Promise me you'll be on your best behavior while I'm gone. A couple weeks after that, I left Crimea and went to Turkey. Luckily, there were no problems there because at the time Turkey were considered a friend, I don't know. From there, I got to Amsterdam on the biggest plane I've ever seen. And then, hello Air Canada. From Amsterdam to Toronto. There was this funny thing that happened on that plane. Very quickly, I found a Canadian on the plane. We started talking. He was just as surprised as you were by the way I speak. And when the time came to order food, I was like, I'm going to get everything he gets just to get a full Canadian experience. I don't know what I was thinking. And he got this drink that I looked at and thought, I don't recognize this at all. It must be a popular drink in Canada. I must try it. And I did. And it's a tomato juice with a clam juice in it. Doesn't sound good. But it is good. I liked it. You know what? I liked it. Judge me. So I got to Toronto. I'm in the country. I'm happy. Toronto looks amazing. I'm blown away by the city. But then there was a second wave when I realized that, oh, Toronto is also very expensive and very quick. You need to run around like crazy. I'm from the south. We don't do that. A few weeks after jumping from one Airbnb to another, I found this post on social media. A guy is moving out from an apartment and looking for a person to replace him as a tenant. Very nice place. Very affordable. One downside. It's not in Toronto. It's in Edmonton. In my head, I was like, I already traveled from Russia to Canada. I can travel from Toronto to Edmonton. So I did. I got here and I never left since. And just the idea of being able to go to Canada and live here gave me so much hope at the time because, look, as a Ukrainian in Russia, you learn to be quiet about it. You learn not to mention it unless absolutely necessary because although some people can be okay with it, most of them are not. And take a guess what I am for Ukrainians. Russian. And evidently for Europe too. And at some point you just start to think, how does the passport has more value than the person who has it? It seems that they don't look at who I am. They just look at the documents and make assumptions. Canada was the only place where it didn't matter. I can't find my place in the world. It feels like I'm lost. Hey, sorry bud, just haven't heard you. We are the place for the nice people who are lost? Do you want to come here maybe? Now don't get me wrong. Canada also deals with some stereotypes. We talked about it in the previous video. But first of all, as many of you pointed out, they're just stereotypes. But the important thing is, even if we say that these stereotypes are true most of the time, none of them are actually bad. Most of Canadians watch hockey. But if you don't, that's okay. If you're a Canadian and you're rude, what happened? Seriously, do you have a bad day? Just tell us what happened. We can deal with this together. You don't have to yell. In Canada, these stereotypes don't necessarily define you. But if they do, that's okay. In Russia, it feels like it's not most of us are like this, but we accept you if you're different, just be nice. It feels more like most of us should be like this. And if you're not, get out. So I did. At the end, I wanted to thank everybody who watched this video and the previous video too. It was a new experience for me when you answer 5 comments, refresh the page, and there are 10 more. And it keeps happening over and over again for like hours. I've read so many moving stories from immigrants from Europe, from Russia, from the US. So many Canadians in the comments are saying, welcome, you're one of us now, you're a citizen, welcome home. And if I told you I didn't cry just a little bit when I read that, I'd be lying. Let's just leave it there. I appreciate the gesture and the message, and you're all very sweet, and I want to hug you, but the papers are important, and they're saying I'm not a citizen yet. But I get what you mean. The mentality. I am planning to make a video about Russian stereotypes, so if you know any or you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, look at that. Another video. A friend of a friend actually told me that it's really good.